Hello, welcome to another Looney Tunes review video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to follow my journey to review all 1000 classic Looney Tunes shorts and give this video a like as well. So this is a review for Zipping Along, and zipping along with me are my good friends Matt Hunter and Manny Cruz. Say hi, guys.
Meep, 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 meep.
And that's going to be the whole review. It's like, do you like this, Matt?
Meep, 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 meep.
Easiest review ever. Easiest review ever. Alright, so a few bits of info to get underway. So as mentioned, this is Zipping Along, released on the 8th of August 1953. It had a Blue Ribbon reissue sometime in 1969. I mean, that's how far along the Blue Ribbon thing happened. But anyway, it's the 686th in the series, and it's directed by, well, who else? Chuck Jones. You can find this on the Looney Tunes Golden Collection Volume 2 DVD set and on the Platinum Collection Volume 2 Blu-ray set. It's under copyright like all the Roadrunners are, so you won't find it on YouTube, it'll just get blocked. But what happens in this short? Well, do you even have to ask? I kind of feel silly doing a synopsis for a Roadrunner short, but you see Roadrunner, who is Velocity's Tremendous, and Coyote, Roadrunnerus Digestus, up against each other. What more is there to it? Nothing. So, two bits of trivia. So the first one is, and it's a very important one actually, that this is actually the first Roadrunner short to have Maurice Noble credited for layout. So we're now going to start seeing even more stylized backgrounds, which is definitely a highlight of these shorts. But what else is interesting is that later on, we'll discuss the gag more thoroughly later on, but in the gag involving hypnosis, that's interesting because around this time, there was definitely an increased interest in that sort of thing in hypnosis, ESP, and psychology in general. So this would have been something that's kind of timely. You had a lot of low-budget horror movies involving hypnosis and things like that. But of course, there is one little Ghostbusters reference, Manny.
Do you believe in UFOs, astral projections, mental telepathy, ESP, clairvoyance, spirit photography, telekinetic movement, full trance mediums, the Loch Ness Monster, and the theory of Atlantis?
Yes.
No, you're supposed to say, if there's a steady paycheck in it, I'll believe anything you say. Ah, there's my Ghostbuster reference. Good old Winston Zeddemore. And of course, the other one too. Dr. Peter Venkman, played by the amazing Bill Murray, doing the ESP. He's studying the effects of ESP on the two college students in the beginning of the film. Or, let's be serious, he was hitting on the lady. Let's be honest,
Yes.
He was being a naughty boy.
So there you go. There's your Ghostbusters reference, because usually we get a Simpsons one. I'm sure we'll find a way to slip in a Simpsons reference at some point.
Oh, we will. Remember the Simpsons episode that they parodied the Roadrunner Wile E. Coyote? Ah.
Yes.
Yeah. You sounded like Skinner there. Yes.
Yes. Well, let's take a look at this short from start to finish. We all know it's going to be pointless to rate each and every one of these gags because they're all great. One is kind of weird, and I'll point it out. It wasn't maybe as funny, but whatever. In fact, pretty much all the Chuck Jones Roadrunner shorts will have a high score at the end anyway. But let's go through it. This one's a great one. I remember seeing this one as a kid. It was on a Roadrunner VHS where they had, I think, 10 of them in a row or something, which it is harder to watch this series one after another because it does get same old, but when you're watching these independently of the others and amongst other cartoons, they're brilliant. These are some of the finest cartoons ever made.
I noticed too that when I was a kid anyway, they used to have these, back in the days when not everything was digital, they used to have these tearaway calendars that would have a comic strip each day, like there would be Peanuts or Garfield or The Far Side or something like that. And then somebody decided, oh, why don't we have a screenshot from a Looney Tunes cartoon every day? And you tear away the page every day. And pretty much every Roadrunner shot in that thing that I had, whatever year that was from this cartoon. Like there are so many iconic images in this cartoon that, they just use that one. I love the opening bit where the coyote is looking over the cliff and you see the multiples of his head and then they decide to freeze it there. It's almost like Chuck Jones doing the Dover Boys smear effect, but actually making it even funnier by freezing the freeze frame on that.
Yes, and that was one I wanted to point out. In fact, that one bit, that whole freeze frame thing, that actually got me interested in what things would look like in between, some of the weird smears and all that stuff. Manny, when did you first see this one?
I've said it before in other commentaries. Growing up, I was not the biggest Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner fan. I feel the same way with Sylvester and Tweety cartoons. And let's say, Pepe Le Pew as well. And Matt, you actually kind of took the words out of my mouth where when I was watching this short, I was like, wow, some of the scenes from here stood out to me, like the multiple heads of Wile, like you said, Matt. The scene where Wile throws the heavy metal ball to hit the Roadrunner and it comes back and it hits him off the piece of wood he was on and it leaves the indentation. I remembered that. There was a compilation, I think, of Mel Blanc screams that I heard recently. And after Wile gets like, all the mouse traps get him, he goes like that specific scream he does. And I was just laughing hysterically at it. And again, if you ask me right now, this gag, which Roadrunner short is it from? I will be like, I have no idea. It's very hard for me to remember specific. And to be fair, I haven't seen every single Roadrunner short. I mean, I can remember maybe some of the gags from some of the later ones from the 60s because I saw those often on Nickelodeon. I think, like, if you were to say right now, a specific joke that I could remember from the short, and stop me if I'm wrong, is the green bat suit that he wears to fly. I believe that one is from Gee Whiz. Am I correct? Am I wrong?
Yep, you are correct. Yes.
And I remember some of the gags from Fast and Furious and Beep Beep, but I don't really have like any memory of watching this specific short as a kid or when I first got into this hobby. But I will say, like what you guys were saying before, if you watch these in a row, it gets tiresome. But man, I was having a blast with this one. And I'm actually skimming through the file right now. Another shot that I've recognized before is when the Roadrunner goes right up to the coyote and he runs away. He goes meep meep. He runs away and then his cloud of smoke does the meep meep again. And there was one other shot that caught me. Oh, the scene with the magnet. And just the expression he makes right when the TNT, and he just looks right at the camera.
Yeah.
Oh God, that was cracking up.
Yeah.
I've seen that one before.
That was back in the days of what I call dumb cell phones. Before there were smartphones, you could actually download a background for your tiny little flip phone. I had that for a while. That was one that was available. Was him with the magnet, with the TNT barrel stuck to the magnet, and he's looking at the camera, and he's got like that one tooth, that one exposed tooth. I had that as a wallpaper on my little silver flip phone that everybody had. And you could put a tiny little image as your background.
In today's edition of Matt, Manny, and Anthony Are Old.
Yes. Yes.
What happened to you?
I used to be with it, and then they changed what it was.
Yeah, I remember when phones were just black and white, and everyone got excited when they went to color, and the phones were, LG, Motorola, and Nokia. Well, we say Nokia, and you guys say Nokia.
Which was the style at the time.
None of these iPhones and Samsung, In any case, looking at this cartoon, we'll look at each gag one by one, starting with the whole intro sequence, and I've always loved the start with the train and the music that plays, and just how it looks. It just looks so good. Like, the backgrounds are starting to get even more stylized, although not to the extent we're going to see later on, but man, I just loved this whole opening. It's such a great way to reintroduce Roadrunner, in case it is someone's first Roadrunner short. And yeah, as you pointed out, Matt, that face of Coyote with one tooth starting to drool. That's me on a diet where I finally get to have my cheat meal on a Saturday, like trying to figure out what I'm going to eat. That one little tooth, and it just drips. Oh, so good, so good. And the first gag is featuring, of course, that the Cody's going to try and catch him the old-fashioned way, supposedly, but the timing of this is great. So it starts off slow, so he gets run over by Roadrunner once, and just keeps going and going, and then even at one point, Cody's just sick of it. He's just like, oh, whatever.
Oh, thank goodness you brought that up, because my computer I have that specific screenshot up of Coyote with his hands in his face, just like completely dejected. I give up. And I see that face, I was like, man, if that's not being an adult in 2024, or Anthony, I was thinking of you specifically. I'm like, is that the face you make when just your kids are driving you nuts, and all your patience is just run out the window, and you're just like, ugh, with your hands on your face like that?
No, Manny, that's the face I make when I have to edit you.
Touche.
And look at the dry brush effect on that, though. If you freeze frame that scene where the Roadrunner, every time he runs over him, it's just a dry brush smear of blue and orange. They don't even draw the Roadrunner. They just paint a streak going, back and forth across the Coyote's face.
And thankfully it works. It works really well, and it sets it up nicely, and that's what I like about these Roadrunner shorts. No matter which one, and don't show the Rudy Lavira ones, but if you show any of the Chuck Jones, and to be fair, Lavira ones, same thing. If you show them anyone, they get the concept of the characters immediately, and you just go right into it and do all the gags. So that's one of the many reasons why these shorts are so good. So, next gag. So, lying in wait behind a rock with hand grenade. This is one of those gags where you know what's going to happen. And sure enough, it does. But it's great. Yeah. Just the execution. Like, you know, okay, he's probably going to just throw the pin and not the grenade. It's what happens. It's predictable, but hey, it's funny. It's hilarious, you know?
I love the facial expression where he realizes what he's done and his eyes turn square and his jaw just drops.
Exactly. And Chuck himself mentioned that these ones were very quickly made. And it shows, and that's not to put it down or anything, but it shows like where he will have ample opportunities to not animate much, but what he does animate is to the full effect, like the facial expression in that case and in the rest of the short. So the weirdest gag in this one was the one you mentioned, Manny, the whole thing about Cody's looking down, the Roadrunner pops up, beeps at him, and then goes off, and then the cloud of smoke beeps at him. Even as a kid, when I saw that gag, I thought it was kind of weird than funny. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think it's pretty funny. It's kind of random. And then there's not really any payoff to it. It's just, hey, let's just do this visual thing. And then we go on to another more extended gag where Wile E. Coyote is setting up mousetraps on the road. And it's another one that you know exactly what's going to happen.
Exactly. Now, this as a kid, I got to point out something. I don't know if you guys felt this way. First of all, love the instrument that plays. Manny, you can tell me in a moment what it is. But I always thought as a kid, like I like how he goes, mwah, mwah. And as a kid, I thought it was like the instrument saying, nah, nah. Like an Aussie, like saying, nah, mate. Nah, mate, it's not going to work, you know? That's what it came across to me as a kid, and looking at it now going, yeah, I can still see why I thought that way. And that scream when the mousetraps get on him, I think that was even reused in a few other shorts. I'm not sure which ones. But Manny, what is that instrument? That nah.
So the instrument that you hear playing, it's a trumpet with a mute on it. So a mute, it's a little piece of equipment that trumpet players either put inside the bell of their trumpet or they hold it in front of them to change the sound. I'm not a trumpet player, and my friends who will are going to yell at me for it. But I'm guessing this is either a wah-wah mute or the person who was playing it was using a toilet plunger to create that wow, no, no, to make that sound. I was going to say that it was a Harman mute, but it's not. A Harman mute is like a metallic one you put in the inside of it. Or as I used to say when I was a little kid, a Harman mute, and, you know, if you get the chance, go listen to it on YouTube. I used to always say, that's the Disney sound. Because when I was a little kid, I would see, like, clips of Disney cartoons, and you would hear that very bright, tinny sound of a trumpet with a Harman mute in the inside of it. So I'm going to say either a wah-wah or a plunger mute, but brass players, please yell at me in the comments. Go nuts.
Yes.
But not an icing mute.
Oh, goodness. And you can stay there while you're at it.
Oh, man. Great gag. Again, it's one of the ones where I tend to think that with gags, it falls in one of two camps. It's either a gag that you predict what's going to happen. It does happen, but it's funny anyway because of how it's executed. Then you got ones that you think you know what's going to happen, but doesn't happen, and it's funnier for it. And this short, thankfully, has a bit of both. The next one is and again, this has got the nice bit of music, the way it was done, but the whole thing with the kite and the bomb. Like, I mean, first of all, who on earth can order a bomb just casually like that? Just, oh yeah, can I order a bomb please? Sure. And they just deliver it. I don't get it, but anyway. I guess things were more lax back then. You can order whatever you wanted.
This was the Oppenheimer section of the Acme catalog.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And it's just the music, I just like how it goes, like, it was just that timing. So great. Manny, I'm assuming you got a tickle out of that particular bit because of the music.
I was going to say that the music that you heard is all original music. Actually, for this specific cartoon, there's only 2 cues that were used that were not Stalling originals. I was shocked. But that scene in particular, like you said, the rising brum, 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 and then when he falls off the cliff, this was the hardest laugh I got in the entire cartoon. I mean, you already know what's going to happen. He's going to fall off a cliff, the bomb's going to explode. We already knew it was coming, but just the way that Stalling and Franklin wrote the music and just the timing of the gag, I was literally LOLing. I was literally laughing out loud at this gag. The funniest gag in the entire cartoon, in my opinion. And speaking of what you said musically, I've said it in other commentaries, but actually going back to the credits, this cartoon credits Milt Franklin with orchestrations in the beginning. That's a little trivia Easter egg thing that I noticed, because usually they just say music direction, Carl Stalling, and that's it. But I like how in this particular cartoon they gave Milt Franklin the proper credit for the orchestration, and I've said it in another commentary. Stalling writes the original music for the cartoon, and he also picks the cues and he arranges it. So you take an arrangement is you take a piece of music and you rewrite it in a different style, different instrumentation, whatever. But the orchestrator, they're kind of like magicians. Milt Franklin, he knew what instrument is going to get the best idea of the joke across, because usually, from what I've seen, Carl Stalling would write his arrangements on the piano. You know, he'd sit at the piano, he would play, he would write down the ideas, and he would complete it within a week, and then he would pass it along to Milt Franklin, and then from there, Franklin said, okay, this bit, I think the clarinets and the trumpets should play it. This bit, the flutes and the oboes should play it. This part, I think the cellos and basses and the tubas and the trombones will play it. And just that magic that it takes to be an orchestrator, where you're taking the arrangement and saying the best instrument for this scene is this, the best one for this joke or this, and this scene in particular. I mean, I love how you express how funny you thought it was, but just listening to it, just that rising and falling motion in the music itself. And just imagine if Milt Franklin chose the wrong instrument for that scene. Like, it would still be funny, but it wouldn't have that pizzazz, that effect that it could have been if it weren't for the fact that, you know, Milt Franklin was such a brilliant orchestrator. He knew exactly the right instrument to play at the right time.
And Franklin, I don't know if you ever heard these CDs that came out back in the 90s. Again, we're old.
What's a CD?
But Franklin was the one who actually conducted the orchestra. Stalling set it all up, but with their partnership, Franklin was the one who actually conducted the Warner Brothers Orchestra, and you can hear his voice at the beginning of some of the tracks on those CDs, and he knew exactly what he was doing. So he took what Stalling knew in his brain. Stalling was like, I need this song here, I need this cue here, I need this bit here, and then Franklin was the one who put it all together. And when he took over for Stalling, once Stalling retired, you noticed that he had a style all his own. And he did more original cues than Stalling did. He did less references and more just straight up what they call Mickey Mousing, which is ironically the technique that Stalling pioneered, which was back from the early 20s days in movie theaters where they were just playing the piano in front of a silent film. So the music in these is amazing, and this is a good example for a Roadrunner cartoon especially.
Production number 1421, Boyhood Days. Part 1. Here we go, boys. Part 2.
Now, I mentioned before about the two different types of Roadrunner gags. Well, this next one is an example of the second one, where you got Wile E. Coyote chopping down a power pole, and what you typically would expect is that maybe the power pole might, I don't know, fall backwards and hit the coyote instead, or something like that, like you might try and run away and hit him. But no, we get the unexpected, and this always made me laugh as a kid, how, well, a power pole is always going to have wires connected to another power pole, so the second one's going to be the one that ends up hitting him.
That falls on it, yeah.
And it was good. That one's a great one. That's one of the more unexpected ones. That's one of my favourite parts of this short. So the next one is the whole birdseed one, and some people were saying this is the first birdseed one. I have to confirm that, but it's actually a good idea. Just put some metal pellets and then have an oversized magnet and see you later. But you guys already mentioned the whole end result with breaking the fourth wall, where the coyote's like,
snags a metal barrel of TNT, and then it blows up, and you get that great look at the camera, and then all you see is the magnet turned into a pretzel.
Yes.
You don't even see what happens to the coyote, except for an iconic image right after that, which is him blasted through the canyon wall, which on my old car, I actually had a sticker of, which is the silhouette of Wile E. Coyote blown through the rock.
Of course. The next one is the hypnotism gag, and I've got to point out a few things. So I looked at the book, it says Hirschenberger, and I looked it up, and sure enough, I found nothing. So if you guys know anything about that Hirschenberger reference, definitely let me know. Is it a reference to a book publisher, or someone that pioneered hypnotism or anything like that? that. I couldn't find anything. Must be pun for something, otherwise I don't see why they would have added it in. But sure enough, the book itself seems to have a whole chapter on hypnotizing someone to walk off a cliff. So, ergo, this book is teaching people how to murder someone, because why would you want to hypnotize someone to walk off a cliff? What other logical reason would there be? You know?
Have you ever had a boss?
I've had many bosses. I no longer have many bosses thanks to this book. But it's just kind of weird, because you'd think a book on hypnotism would be something like, oh, hypnotize your friend to act like a chicken or something similar to a Simpsons reference. We'll weave that in, of course. That whole hypnotist.
Burger. Chicken. I gave my love a chicken, it had no bone. Chicken. I can't help it.
And because it's a real song, this review will probably get flagged on YouTube for that song or something. But in any case, so this one's one of the longer gags. It sets it up nicely with the fact that you got a fly just walking off a cliff and presumably dying. But anyway.
And yeah, how does a fly exactly walk off a cliff? I mean, it's a fly. It's in its name. Like, it can fly. Yeah. Like, how is it going to fall off a cliff? In fact, it's like the old joke that, I heard one time. What if you pick the wings off a fly? Do you call it a walk?
Oh, wow. That's a chef kiss for that dad joke right there. Oh, I'm going to use that one. I'm stealing that, so... but the punchline is naturally that he tries it on the Roadrunner, who seemingly is aware of what the Coyote's trying to do, so lifts up a mirror and then the Coyote, in a beautifully timed bit of animation and music too, it just goes dun 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 and just falls off. Like the little march. I would love to be a fly on the wall. I know we just spoke about flies. And to that recording bit of them actually going, okay, we're going to record a march for the Coyote walking off. Da, 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 da. And you see the whole orchestra just doing that one little bit. That would have been good to see.
But the payoff to this gag is really good, because one of the supposed rules of Roadrunner cartoons is that the Roadrunner never directly harms the Coyote. And in fact, he really doesn't, but he holds up a mirror to the Coyote's hypnotism, meaning the Coyote hypnotizes himself, and he all of a sudden looks like he's just looked at an eclipse directly, which, we just saw here in Texas anyway, a total solar eclipse. Coyote then, of course, does the exact same thing the fly did, which is walks right off a cliff. And you hear the slide whistle, and then the...
Then straight after that, after having a longer gag, we have a very short gag, which is just a simple little seesaw and rock contraption. Hey, it's fine. Sometimes you got to have these little simple gags in between to sort of break things up a bit. It's fine. It's funny. I don't mind that one.
It's one of his go-to gags. He does that in a lot of them. The seesaw with the rock. And
just to pad things out, I suppose. Yeah, it's fine for what it is. There's nothing wrong with it. And we get the gun trap, and even as a kid I was watching this going, how strong is the Coyote at some stage? So he sets up these guns, but how on earth did he pull the guns to a point where they end up shooting him?
Cartoon logic.
It's bizarre, but it's funny. I liked it.
A, hilarious. B, cartoon logic.
Meep, meep. Meep, meep.
So the next gag, well, the Coyote now hides behind a rock, so he's waiting for the Roadrunner to go across the bridge, and of course, logic would dictate you cut the bridge and the Roadrunner would fall down, and as per previous blueprints, Roadrunner falls flat. Next step, ha. But we end up getting cartoon logic once again, and what is it? He just cuts the ropes, and the cliff face falls down. Very bizarre. Very bizarre.
How bizarre? How bizarre.
So then we get up to the human cannibal, and this is again one of those gags where the cannon's going to fail in some way, because just about every contraption... In fact, I don't know why he keeps getting stuff from Acme. I'm assuming it's an Acme cannon, so sure enough, the thing recoils, but it leaves the Coyote behind all blackened, and he's like, why? Why didn't it shoot me out? But even then, this wouldn't have worked anyway. It would have been just shot in a straight line, and as soon as there's a bend in the road, the Roadrunner's safe anyway, so it's chalk it up to being one of his more stupider ideas, I think.
Right. You know, like, what are you expecting? He's going to fly through the air? Nope, the cannon flies off and he falls, all charred. The next scene, though, I remember very vividly, and I actually remember this one from a commercial that used to run on Cartoon Network. Again, we're old, but there was a movie marathon that they did of all the compilation movies of Looney Tunes, and I think because this one was in the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner movie, they highlighted it. The promos for this thing called Cartoon Network Cartoon Theater were by the guy that did all those late 80s, early 90s movie trailers, a guy named Don LaFontaine, and he was the guy that would say, "In a world where this can happen. And he narrated this thing of the Looney Tunes movie marathon, and the coyote is just looking to get a square meal. Look up the Don LaFontaine Cartoon Network, and you can see that he did those Cartoon Network airings of Looney Tunes movies like he would an actual movie trailer, and it's absolutely hysterical.
Watching this gag, it's, again, a simple one. So he just throws the ball, and in a wonderful bit of timing, the Roadrunner just stops, just inches, just small amount of distance from this ball, and then he just continues on. But then as a kid, I'm looking at it going, Cody, why aren't you just sidestepping out of the way? Why are you looking at this ball coming towards you?
Yeah. Well, you know, that dad joke, Anthony, okay? So I wondered why the baseball kept getting closer to me, then it hit me.
Very nice. Very, very nice.
LOL.
Very nice. Yeah, and watch my subscriber count drop. Oh, dear. No. But yeah, that is a funny one. It's good.
Meep, meep. Meep.
But I do like the very last gag and just the elaborate setup. And even as a kid, I'm looking at it going, these roads, they're used by vehicles, they're used by trucks and that. So you're blocking this whole road for this one Roadrunner, and somehow you can afford all this stuff, and yet you can't even afford to buy food. So again, logic, but whatever, you just go with it. And there's this elaborate setup, and well, what do you expect? The truck's coming through, you know? But if the Cody did get out of the way, he would kill an innocent driver in that particular scene. But anyway, you just go with it. And sure enough, the Cody tries to get back through the door, forgets himself and blackens. And we don't see the Roadrunner at the very end. You would have expected him to be maybe in the truck or something. But no, we just see Cody doing meep meep, and we end there.
That truck must be military grade, you know. But the ending is one of the funniest bits of animation ever done, and that is the coyote who's just had enough, and he does a straight up impression of the Roadrunner with the jump up and beep beep, and then he sticks his tongue out, and then he just faints. And I remember seeing that they used that exact bit of animation in the video game. Back in the 90s, it was called Roadrunner's Death Valley Rally. And at one point, at the end of one of the levels, it was like really late in the game. And it's one of the most frustrating video games you could ever play if you ever tried it. But we get to that point, and he just does that. He just goes crazy, and he does the Roadrunner impression, sticks his tongue out, and then he just faints. I just love that bit of animation. And obviously, the people who made that game did too. But meep, meep, blah, 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 flop.
It's a great ending. Like, yeah, you didn't need to see the Roadrunner in the truck or anything. It's just something you would think that you might see, but yeah, they wisely chose not to add it. You didn't need the extra touch at the end. I thought that was a great ending. Now, Manny, you said there was only 2 music cues in this one?
The 2 cues that you have, besides the Merry Melodies theme, you hear a little bit of Perpetuum Mobile by Johann Strauss. And you also hear a little bit of the overture to the opera Tannhäuser in this cartoon. I heard like a little snippet.
Meep, meep.
As I love that overture. In case you're wondering, that's do 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 do. Think of the main theme of What's Opera Doc. And I said,
What
time I love. Exactly, that one.
Yeah, with the original lyrics.
Meep, 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 meep. No, but yeah, that's it. Just Johann Strauss and Richard Wagner and a ton of original music by Carl Stalling, and with brilliant orchestrations by Milt Franklin. Just, this is one of those cartoons where it's like, it's so cool that we got to hear more of Carl Stalling's original music and just how well it fits the cartoon.
Yeah. Exactly, and enhances the gags too in a lot of cases as well, which is what it should be doing, of course.
So, Anthony, you mentioned that this had a blue ribbon reissue in 1969. 1969 being a very pivotal year in Warner Brothers animation history because it was the year the studio closed and the final...
That's all, folks.
Bob Bergen and Eric Bauza, watch out. We got Mad Hunter coming through. Coming out of the West, it's Red Hot Hunter. Okay, sorry. But I was actually trying to look up the exact date when this cartoon was reissued because the final Warner Brothers short, the 1969 Merry Melody Engine Trouble, I know technically the term's a slur, but that's the name of the cartoon, came out September 20th, 1969. But the reissue of Zipping Along, November 15th, 1969. So like I said, Engine Trouble came out September 20th of that year, and you have 6 reissues that came out afterwards. The final Warner Brothers short that was reissued was another Roadrunner cartoon, Gee Whiz, which came out December 27th, 1969. So you have Gee Whiz, and then before that was One Froggy Evening, December 6th of that year, and Zipping Along, November 15th. So this was the third to last Warner Brothers short ever released in movie theaters.
Wow.
Wow, at least among all the very ordinary new stuff that we're releasing, they still at least re-release some good stuff.
Oh,
so
some
at least...
classics. I mean, Gee Whiz and One Froggy Evening and this are all excellent cartoons, at least.
Exactly. So at least it balanced the universe out a bit during that year, while everyone's presumably stoned out of their mind. But
while they're watching Cool Cat and Merlin the Magic Mouse, of course.
Exactly. But in terms of rating, I'm giving this one a 10. It's one of the best Roadrunner cartoons, and definitely nostalgia does play a little bit in it for me because I watched this one constantly as a kid, but it's perfectly made cartoon. I really can't find anything to fault about it. Even that one little weird gag involving the cloud, so what? It's still good. So yeah, I'm giving it a 10.
I say the same. It's a 10. If any Roadrunner cartoon is a 10, this is one of them.
Yep. Manny?
All right. This gets a 10 out of 10. This cartoon had multiple gags that I literally laughed out loud. Cartoon, I think, is a perfect example of why these two particular characters are just so well remembered and loved, because this cartoon was absolutely hilarious. I get the appeal. I really do.
But that'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and until next time, take care.
Meep meep.
Meep, meep.
Nah.
Meep meep.